Welcome to the Social 3 panel. This is the art of growth where we use the Enneagram and the best tools we can find to help you transform. We are in our season on subtypes, and a subtype is your dominant instinct, self-preservational, sexual, or social, combined with your Enneagram type, your number. This week we are talking to type 3s and how they relate to their instinctual sequence. This is how we've been talking about it. We have a relationship to these instincts, and so we're talking to these panelists about how they relate to their dominant instinct, their neutral instinct, and their repressed or neglected instinct. If you don't know your instinctual sequence, you can take our free instincts test on our website, www.theartofgrowth.org. You can also take our Enneagram test there and find out about all of our work, from individual coaching, group coachings, and working with organizations, since there is a growing awareness in companies of the return on investing in the emotional intelligence of their team so that they function better together and function better with those the company is there to serve. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we love connecting with you. But for now, let's jump in with our 3 panel, talking about what it's like to be dominant in the social instinct.
All right, well, welcome to the Social 3 podcast. I am so excited to be here with you. We're doing this because when the instinct and the type match up together, they create this subtype, and it looks different from one to the next. So you can have 3 different type 3s, a self-preservation 3, a social 3, a sexual 3 in the same room, and you would notice the distinct differences. And this is what is really helpful in understanding how the instincts work. So let's get started. And as we do, could you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, and then we're going to jump right in.
Cool. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Melissa, and I am from the suburbs right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And hi, I'm Donna. I am from Saskatchewan, Canada.
Hi, I'm Barbara, and I live in Shanghai, where I'm an entrepreneur. I run a business here.
Wonderful. Well, let's begin by asking the question about the type and how it matches up with the different aspects of the social instinct. So under the social instinct, we have reading and interpreting. We have bonding and affiliating. And thirdly, we have contribution or contributing to others. And so the type 3 has a need for being successful, for being seen as successful, for getting some kind of feedback, approval, admiration that you are. And so how does this interact with reading and interpreting?
Well, when I read that description, I realized that there was something that I did that I hadn't even realized that I was doing. So when I go to a party or a social situation, I know that the 3s were typically the performer and would take center stage. But when I walk into the party, I never walk immediately into the party. So I kind of walk to the side and I put my stuff down and I'm reading the room. And I'm picking up all the vibes so that I know kind of who to be in that room that's going to match and get me the right kind of attention. I don't even realize that I did this until I read the description. I was like, yep, that's what I do. I literally walk around the side and read the room before I go in. And then it's that kind of okay, now I'm going on stage. Now I'm ready.
Yeah, Barbara, I completely agree. I feel like in every social circumstance, whether it's a team meeting with my staff and I'm choosing which seat to have around the table, or if it's a party and I'm trying to figure out which group of people I want to socialize with first, I'm the same way. I'll go to a meeting a few minutes early so that I strategically will choose my seat based off of who I want to or don't want to sit next to. And again, sometimes that's me trying to figure out okay, do I want to be next perceive as the leader at this time? Do I want to place myself at the leader? Do I want to be at the head of the table? Do I want to be next to somebody who's an ally? Or, so it's really funny how that shows up in how I want to interact with others.
Yeah, and I resonate to both of those things. I think it's do I have my mom hat on, or do I have my businesswoman hat on? Or who am I being in this group of people to bring us together? Or, what do people look to me to do in this group? And who am I being?
This is so fascinating because I'm watching how you're reading like both from the heart center as a 3, which heart center types do read, and you read the emotions of other people sometimes, and you're reading how you're being perceived by the world. But then there's also the reading and interpreting that takes place from the instinct, which all types who have the social instinct can do, but it's a different kind of reading. And I'm hearing you both mixing that up a little bit. I'd love to hear if you've had thoughts around that. Have you noticed that kind of pairing up? Does it sort of double down on the 3 a little bit, make you even more of a social 3? Or
well, I laugh about, like, I say social 3s are like the 3 of 3s. You know, we're probably the most 3-like of the 3s, that it's always about reading, interpreting, who am I in the group? And I heard both of you using that language. It's like, yes, that's totally it. It's who am I in this group, and who am I being for them, and what role do I want to take? And so I was just realizing sometimes if I go into a group situation, I might be like, I'm not going to take center stage. I'm not going to be the leader. And so I'll like sit off to the side and I'll like look for, how do I contribute to the group? And that's probably like the heart center. I'm trying to like give the leadership to somebody else, but I'm reading and looking for, where can I make a contribution?
Totally. And I feel like if I'm really involved in the cause, maybe, and it's someone that I'm close to that I want to succeed that is in that leadership role, that's when I'll step back a little bit more and kind of bite my tongue or sit on the sidelines, because I know I want that person to succeed and I don't want to take over.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. My husband always says, it must be exhausting to be a 3. Like anytime he hears me talk or what I'm going through, he's like, it is exhausting to be you. Now he's an Enneagram 8. So like, he's just going to tell me how it is no matter what. But when I was thinking about this question specifically with reading and interpreting, I feel like as a social 3, I can never turn it off. Like I am constantly reading and interpreting everything, whether it's the dynamic of the herd or the group or how I am interacting with them as a leader. And it is exhausting. Like there are many days where I walk away from a meeting, or again, like if it's one-on-one or if it's group, where I'm like, gosh, I have poured all my energy into that. And a lot of it is because I am internally trying to read and interpret their reaction or what they're thinking or how my decision is going to influence their choices or vice versa. And I'm like drained by the end of the day.
You're nodding your heads up and down like furiously.
Yeah.
It's a big yes, right?
Absolutely. It is exhausting being a social 3. Yes. We're never off.
No.
Yeah. And I think this too, my competitiveness shows up in this space too. Like if I'm at the gym and I'm, looking around to see what everybody else is doing, it's like, I'm going to crush these people. Like, it's kind of like the competitive nature comes out depending on the situation. Yeah. So, but you're always, kind of reading that situation to see if it's appropriate to be competitive or not.
That is a lot of work. I can see that. And I can hear that. There's a lot of work going on internally, even if you don't show it. So one of the things that's often said about 3s is you appear like a swan on a lake. It's very graceful. It's very, very graceful, floating around. But underneath, the feet are going and going and going. So there's a lot of hard work underneath all of that. And so the presentation does not match up with what's going on internally. And my guess is you're very aware of that.
I'm certainly aware of wanting to make it look good, making, you want to look like you have it all together. Like, yeah, I just woke up like this. Or yes, I can just, do a full day of work and lead my business and then go home and throw a dinner party for 7 people. Like, yeah, I can just do that. Right. And then it is a tremendous amount of effort going on to manage all the aspects and to, as we said, read the room, look after the emotions, try and accommodate them to get to the result. You're just constantly adjusting. Yeah,
totally. And I think too, a memory is a big part of it for me. Like I want to remember those people. So then next time the work isn't as heavy for me next time. So I'm like, oh yeah, I remember from this place, like that guy does that guy does that, that girl does that. So it's almost like I'm being efficient in my reading, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I had thought about reading and interpreting specifically, I laughed because again, I really got some input from my husband because I feel like just as a 3, this is just something that I'm learning more about myself. I am not very introspective about who I am naturally. Like, it's really hard for me to identify my own emotions, even like finding my motivations to do things. I'm like, gosh, sometimes I feel like I don't clearly know because I've chased the goal for so long that I've just kind of forgot about the why. So anyway, I was telling him, I was like, I feel like a lot of my reading and interpreting is a strategy. It is a strategy to help me succeed. It's a strategy to help me feel valuable. It's a strategy. And I'm like, I almost don't want to share with my friends or people who know me that I'm sharing this on the podcast because I don't want them to be seen as a strategy. I don't want my relationship with them to be seen as like, wait, does Melissa like really care about me, or is she just like trying to work the room here? So that's been an interesting reflection.
Well, you've described it so well, because the reading and interpreting, as it relates, again, not the heart, although when it's combined with the heart, it again creates this incredibly powerful dynamic. But the reading and interpreting does have an agenda for social types. And you're going to hear this and laugh with the other social types across all 9 types who will say, it's true. I mean, there's always an agenda, even in my bringing people on, but it doesn't make it a manipulative in a bad way agenda. It's sort of I want to get the best out of you. And I know that if you contribute to the group, it's really going to be wonderful. And the group is going to even be better because of your contribution to the group. And we'll get to that third piece, the contribution piece. But that's how the reading and interpreting tends to happen for social types. And so, yes, there is a little bit of that, for sure, that agenda being at play here, but it is for the greater good for social types. Let's move to bonding and affiliating, because bonding and affiliating is this piece that social types will do, which is to stay in touch in general. Again, this might show up differently for you as a 3, but in general, the idea of it is to stay in touch with its connections, with its partners, to stay in touch with people that are allies, to make allies, to have this affiliation, this group. These are my people, right? So there's a sense of like, these are my people. I can trust them. They're with me. And so there's the checking in, the bonding and affiliating would be the checking in with people fairly regularly to see, are we good? Are you okay? So now the reading and interpreting, and none of these are separate. So we're going through them as categories, but they kind of all interplay with each other. So it's like reading, how are you? And then making sure that, this is part of the bonding and affiliating part of it as well. So talk to me about how your type interacts with bonding and affiliating.
Well, the 3est of the 3 planning, me, I often make calendar reminders of, like, I schedule the people to check in with. Like, I have my 15 people that I want to like let them know that I'm concerned about them. So it's in the schedule. It's like, oh, got to touch base with this person today. Got to, check on these people. And I have notes about them. And it's just, run it like a plan.
Oh, wow. I wish I did that. I feel like I would be a better person if I did that. Because I tend to be so transactional. There's friends I have that I don't check in with for like 6 months, and then I feel terrible about it. But then it's like, oh, I really should have a reminder to like check in with those people.
And I think that's how I got there, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, there are 1 or 2 people who I have like a pop-up reminder in my to-do list to be like, check in with this person. And then I felt really bad about that because it felt really sort of transactional or mechanical. Mm-hmm. But I was talking to a friend and she's like, no, it's not. It's like your alarm clock. It gets you up in the morning. It's a structure to do what you're committed to, which is get up on time to go to work. And that's just like an alarm clock to stay in touch with those people.
Yeah. Let's clarify this, because I'm glad you brought this up, because this is not about the social instinct wants to connect with the world or with everybody they've ever connected with. It has more of a strategic bent to it. So think about your domain, right? These are your people. Again, whoever it is that you work for or works for you, these are your people. The checking in will probably take place much more with those people because it matters, particularly as a 3, where you do have, a goal to succeed. You do have a plan and you want people to participate in that place. Very consistent with 3s is I want people to participate and to join in and to enter into the plans that I've created. And so now the social instinct helps with that. So talk about that, like the bonding and affiliating within your particular domain.
Well, in my business, I check in with my direct reports, and there is that sort of strategic aspect of like, oh, I should have lunch with this person because that keeps her engaged and that keeps her more motivated if I have a one-on-one lunch together. Or if I just spend time hanging out with Daniel because he's a 7 and he likes that kind of schmoozing. So if I do that with him and make him feel like he's my number one guy, he really likes that. So if I spend time schmoozing with him and reinforce, yeah, he's my number one guy, then he's going to be that much more motivated when he goes out. So I definitely look for where do I need to spend time with people to keep them on the team.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that in terms of the workplace, Barbara, because I know that as I've grown in my knowledge of the Enneagram, you know, I am a boss. I have a couple direct reports. I work at a church, so I have hundreds of people that are volunteering under me. The more I understand about their Enneagram type, the more I'm able to say, this is how I can specifically check in with this individual. And okay, I'm going to make this person feel known or valued. And it's going to look different if they're a 2 versus if they're a 9, you know, versus if they're a 7. So like that has been super helpful in the check-in process. For my personal relationships with my friends, this showed up really interesting when the pandemic started, because for me, as somebody who is so social and extroverted and really stimulated by that, I noticed that texting was not enough. Like a text check-in was not creating that bond enough for me. So like I downloaded an app on my phone called Voxer, which is like radio walkie-talkie app. And I like went to each of my best friends and I was like, I need you to download this app because I need to hear your voice. And this is really important for us to engage in conversation. And that has been one of the healthiest decisions to like help me get through, you know, this time of isolation, essentially.
I can relate to that so much, Melissa. And I think too, even like in the workplace, if I'm doing like a performance appraisal or something like that on one of my staff,
yeah,
it's almost like the need to be liked. I'll have to give criticism, almost like a compliment sandwich. Like, you're really great at this, but we need to work on this, but you're so good at this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like me, but I want to tell you the criticism, but like me.
Yeah. I totally think a 3 invented that sandwich model. So Barbara, you were talking about, the time when your office was relatively empty, right? Around New Year's, and how demoralizing that felt to you, and how like having a buzz, having like people around and that energy kind of charges you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here, Chinese New Year is the big holiday. And this year it was in the middle of February, and sort of we had a minor flare up of COVID cases at end of January. So it kind of made everyone knock off a little bit earlier. And then work just got real quiet. And I was miserable. I was absolutely like frustrated and worried about my business and feeling alone and isolated and then not motivated to do the work that I knew I needed to do. Even though I had the quiet to do like concentrated tasks, I wasn't doing them because there wasn't a group of people around me. And then that sense of like, being alone, there's nobody here on my team. That's like kryptonite for me.
It's already hard enough for a 3, but then you add that social instinct, which needs that like...
You need the herd.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing over here when it's like, we send out the email, like, you guys can work at home if you want, but you can come here. I'll be here. Anyone can come.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I was thinking about that with the social aspect too. Like, somebody who desires so greatly to be a leader and to be a leader for other people and to help lead people to this like altruistic, great cause of we're going to improve the world and be, you know, world changers. It's really hard to be a leader if you don't have followers. So, you know, this need to like bond and affiliate is like, I need to find my followers. I need to find the people that are going to listen to me, that are going to affirm what I'm thinking or leading. So that's been interesting to work through.
Yeah. And do you guys also feel like in your herd, you want to know everything? Like, I want to know every detail and everything. And I don't want to be caught by surprise with anything. Like, if something catches me by surprise, that affects me a lot. Like, I really just want to know the herd inside and out.
Oh, no, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like you're so much more a nicer person than I am. I just want to know, like, are we on track or not? I've got business goals to hit. I want to know anything that's going to interfere with that. But your personal life, I don't care.
I just think that it all affects, for me, it affects people's work. And I guess that's what I'm looking at. It's like, if I know that you and your girlfriend broke up and I can set you up with someone else, I will. So you're better, you're happier, so you work better.
Yeah.
Well, you're making the connections. That's really smart of you to make that. Those connections are really what the three, it may show up differently. Like a 3 may not care about the personal details of someone else's life, but your attention is to, if it affects what I'm trying to accomplish, that's a big deal. And I think most 3s would say yes. And that's why I want to be on top of whatever it is that I feel like is going to affect, my agenda, my goal.
Yeah. And that's been interesting leading people too, because as a 3, as social as I am, I could go to my office, shut the door and work nonstop for 7 hours, and sometimes I prefer that because I'm like, I need to get into the zone to be creative and to be a maker. And like, sometimes I need to seclude myself in order to get things done. But I have also learned that I need to be a little more gracious with some of my teammates. Like there are times where, I've had an Enneagram 2 coworker who has really had a difficult conversation with somebody and she walks into a meeting and I need to give her space to talk about that. And I'm like, on TikTok, like the clock is going here. But like, I have trained myself to be like, you need to give her a few minutes because she's not going to contribute if she doesn't feel heard and has her place to, feel loved in that way. So that has been really hard for me to learn. Like, I'm not going to be a great leader if I can't help other people, get on board and create this team atmosphere versus just like Melissa's agenda for the meeting.
So let's talk about contributing then, because that's where we're going here is ultimately like, this is a big feature of the social instinct. And some might even argue that that's actually the central kind of goal of the team, the social instinct that thinks in terms of teams and how groups work together, that dynamic. And it's for ultimately the goal of contributing. What is your contribution to the team? Am I contributing? And then this sort of back and forth interplay between who's contributing, who's leading, and maybe I need to take a step back, or maybe I need to take a step up. That kind of adaptability that functions within that aspect of contributing. So talk about how your type interacts with this piece of it as well, the contributing to the herd.
I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, talking about like that was actually just happened, like a guy that was maybe like a little bit grumpy on my team, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't really have anything like in his personal life. And I literally like pushed him, and now he's dating a girl. And I was like, is your apartment clean? Are your sheets clean? Like, what are you getting her for her birthday? Like, just overly involved so that it would, be great. And like, he's happier and he is more productive and it's, successful. So I think that's kind of a piece of it for me. And also I really like connecting people, and I want to also be the person that's connecting those people. So it's like, you need a plumber. I got a plumber for you and he'll do great. And I just like bringing those people together to make everybody better, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. Again, Donna, I listen to that and I'm like, wow, I should be more like that. I think my altruism is much more about like, I have a higher purpose. I have a goal of like what I'm about and how my goal contributes to society, contributes to making the world a better place. And like, I want everyone to tuck in behind information and we're all going that way. And so I'm not focused on the individuals so much as sort of like, what am I building with this? So when I was involved in, the .com boom in the 2000s, like it was about really, free flow of information and making business, this kind of conversation internationally, digitally, more convenient. And so that fit in with how I want the world to be. My business here in Shanghai, it's about allowing space for people to get together and create together. And that's part of my vision of how I want the world to be. So when I'm like really involved in something, my goal, I think I have to believe that it's contributing to the world.
100%. I agree, Barbara. I mean, the jobs that I have selected to pursue as an adult have had to be jobs that have contributed to the greater good of humanity. Like, it's almost not worth it in my mind. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've worked at McDonald's too as a teenager. So like, but like, and that is, contribution to the greater good. But like this idea of like, I have to do something that has purpose and that matters and that affects people. And like, for me, like I'm in ministry. So like, it's eternal and it's everlasting. Like just this whole viewpoint of how everything that I have to do or orchestrate or have my hand in has to be bigger than life. It has to be bigger than my life. It has to impact
otherwise what's
generations.
The point, right?
Right, exactly. So I feel that a lot in every choice that I make.
Donna, what about you? Do you feel that same thing? Do you feel that like it's got to be big?
You know what? I do, but it's almost like the one-to-one instinct. I score very high on the sexual as well. So it's almost like, yes, I do see that. And I'm hearing what you guys are saying, but I do like that one-on-one. And it's like, how can we have that, that conversation or that relationship to show you this bigger picture and to show you kind of what else is out there. So I do relate to both, I guess, but maybe more so in this topic, the one-to-one is pulling ahead of the social.
Well, you know what? If this is, you and I have been working together on this, and this is one of the things that we value at the Art of Growth. I know this can kind of sound jarring to you as a 3, but we're not about performance. For us, we're about the journey. We're about the discovery. We're about exploration. And it takes time. I've said before, it took me a year and a half to figure out I was not a type 8. And so that was a long time. Other people figured it out a lot earlier. I did not. And but through the peeling back of layers of the onion, I got to the core and I could see it. And once I saw it, it was completely obvious to me and, of course, everybody who knew me. And so, Donna, that could be actually really a wonderful gift. Like the more that you see in contrast, like the sexual instinct might just edge out the social instinct. And it would explain a lot of things that you and I have talked about in terms of like how you do get into the lives of other people and you do get deep into their world. So this is
totally,
this is pretty awesome. Yeah.
I thought I was just being a 3 and just like I scored really high on all the tests. So I wasn't sure if that was it or not.
I think you were supposed to get 100 on social instinct and 100 on sexual instinct. And
That's great. One thing that I felt like was a little exposing when thinking about just the idea of contributing to others was I feel like because I do have such a bigger picture mindset, and I struggle with this just being a 3 in general, I lose myself in that view. Like I am constantly so focused on the bigger picture, or how does this affect the group, or what does the herd want, that like I have a really hard time figuring out what Melissa wants. And I have a hard time advocating that or describing it sometimes. So, I was kind of thinking about that. Like, is this common, for people who score high on the social instinct that, and I know we're going to get to in a bit, but like self-pres is for sure my lowest. And just like the awareness of that, or the lack of awareness rather.
Yeah, that definitely resonates for me. And the question of like identifying what I want, or even like, why would I consider that? Why is that important? That's not the point, right? I'm trying to build like this for the world. And then in the coaching with Joel, he'll be like, but what do you need? And I'm like, why is that even a relevant question? Who cares, right?
Yeah, there are instincts that when they match up with the type, they kind of pull back a little bit on the type. Then there are other ones that sort of accelerate. It's like an intensifier. And this is one of them that's actually an intensifier. So already the 3's attention goes out, right? So we call them other referencing, meaning it's always checking in with the world around it, see how I'm being perceived. So now you have the social instinct, which already has this sort of external viewpoint. And, that starts to play a significant role in contributing to the whole. I mean, all 3's want to contribute. All 3's want to be successful, goal-oriented. And so then what you have is now you have the contribution piece. Well, there you go. It enhances and accelerates that part of the 3. So it is a little harder for sure when you have the instinct that matches up and actually accelerates it. So harder to kind of do a little bit more of the deeper work. But that's really insightful. Let's talk about the neutral instinct, the one that is second. And in what ways do you use it?
So I don't want to say this out loud, but hey, it's a podcast. The sexual instinct is definitely my second one. And Joel was reminding me about like social threes will use the sexual instinct to get the attention from the group. So when I was in my 20s, so I went to an engineering school. So it was like the ratio of men to women was like 4 or 5 to 1, right? So you go to a party, you're going to get a lot of attention anyway. And then if you dress a little bit sexy and you go to the party, you get a lot of attention, right? These are nerd guys, right? So just show a little skin and you'll be surrounded. And I would use that all the time when I was in my, from 18 to, 30. If I wanted attention, wear something a little bit slinky and go out to a social party and get all the attention in the room.
Yep.
Mine was similar, but just like making money. I worked at a beer tub and like made millions just using my charm, my one-to-one. And,
Yes.
It's like my goal is making money. So who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to sell to? What am I going to dress like? What am I going to look like to get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The sexual and one-to-one is definitely my neutral as well. But I feel like when I use it, it's a strategy. I have a lot of charm and a lot of charisma. And again, like being a 3, that's just so natural. When you walk in the room, when you scan, who do I have to be? Who do I have to turn into? Let's play that role and let's, I've got the script and you'll sell me the item, like whatever it is. So like, I feel like it's just so natural. I don't realize when I'm doing it. My husband made a really interesting observation, and I think this is true. And again, I'm like, this is why I'm not going to let my friends listen to this podcast. I think a lot of times that connection feels so genuine that more so on the part of the receiver, they think I like them more than I probably actually do in real life.
Oh, yes.
Like they think we're better friends than I think, or like, wow, like Melissa really cares about me. She's checking in on me. She's asking me about my life. And I'm like, I'm just doing my job to make sure that, like whatever it may be. It doesn't mean that it's inauthentic. It's just, I know that it's going to help me get the end result too. So,
yeah. And it doesn't.
Oh, yes. I feel so validated by this.
No, absolutely. We're all nodding. We're all saying yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
You're my acquaintance, and some people think that I'm your best friend kind of thing. And that's just part of and a lot of it's too sales.
Yeah. The ability to use charm to get people on your team is like crucial to me in running my business because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm bootstrapping. I can't pay anybody anywhere near what they're worth, but I can be really charming and get them to buy in and want to be on the team and want to help us build the vision and do stuff for free or seriously below scale. And like, that's my superpower. I go out and I get people enrolled in Team White Space, and they're going to come in and they're going to contribute and they're going to get paid a pittance, but they're going to believe in the dream. That's what I do.
Doesn't mean the dream's wrong, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Because it's all for the greater good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in your case, Donna, even if your sexual is first and your social is second, even if it turns out that way, it still is true for sexual types that when they make that deep connection, the difference with social and sexual is the social will, if sexual is their second, will use the sexual more deliberately. Whereas if sexual is your first and social is your second, you use the sexual without even awareness. It's just natural. So you're kind of just doing it. But either way, people do misread that. Because for a 3, your social plus the sexual, there's a lot of charisma happening there. There's a lot of 3 heart energy, the ability to draw, the ability to perform, plus that, that additional dynamic of the sexual energy. It can really be quite powerful. So either direction, social, sexual, sexual, social, you're going to have that ability and be pretty winsome for a lot of people, and people will want to be around you. But what's interesting is we find that people tend to believe, and this I've heard from many 3s, people tend to think that whatever it was that they had with you was deeper. And that's true for a lot of other sexual types. You'll hear this across all types when you listen to the panels, that is oftentimes misread. So neutral, Sexual for you, Donna, it's kind of still, where do you think you're at?
I still feel like social is a little bit stronger, but I think on the test it was like 98 and 88 or something like that. So I think they're just really close.
Okay.
But yeah, it still feels kind of like that to me. I wouldn't say I'm unaware of how I use it for sure.
Sure. And I think there might be, and I'd have to check this with other sexual threes, but there is an awareness of I'm leveraging my charm right now. That is aware, but there's just more that comes off of that's that's not even intentional. That happens for those of who have sexual as their dominant instinct, is that they will tend to kind of do it naturally. There's not a whole lot of thought around it. But for threes, I think there's probably a little bit more thought because, again, it's a little bit more planned in many regards than other types. So let's bounce to the third. This is the one that creates problems for us. So all three of you, self-preservation would be a third. So talk to me about what problems does good old self-preservation cause for you? And talk to me about how you're growing and integrating it in your life.
I went through a big leap in my ability to kind of bring in self-preservation in my 30s. When I was younger, my self-preservation was so low that I looked, I was a e-business consultant at IBM. I was one of the youngest directors in the firm, all this success. And then my house was a mess. My finances were in chaos. And I would literally run out of gas on the highway because I had forgotten to stop and I kept pushing. No, seriously, I ran out of gas and had to call the AA to come put gas in my car like twice in 6 months.
Yeah.
I've done that. Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
Really? All three of you have? Wow.
Yeah, I've had to walk in the middle of a highway to a gas station to just fill up a tank of gas. Totally.
Yeah.
And you're trying to project this image of success and you can't even manage to put gas in your own car, and then it causes all these disasters. And it's you don't want to admit that in public, or I didn't want to admit that in public, but it was just awful. And so I really kind of in my, late 30s, put the effort into okay, we're going to put in systems to manage this so that it doesn't create the inefficiency, so that I can keep going on the things that are really important to me. So I got my house in order, literally spent the time organizing all the paperwork and putting in a filing system. I mean, just the basics to have things not be chaos, but it was not natural for me. It was something I had to consciously put in.
Yeah. I think too, even when I was pregnant, I didn't nest. I never, they say you're just going to move into your house and nest. It's no, I bought a new house. I actually moved into the new house past my due date. The baby didn't even have a room. And I just nesting was not a thing that was happening. But my husband is a self-pres one. So the onest of all ones. And that's all he cares about is making things cozy and cooking good food and taking care, sleeping. We got to sleep 8 hours a night. And I'm just no, we sleep 5 when everything gets done, kind of thing. So the big awakening for me is him. He's just on a completely opposite level. But I do appreciate when he says, "Okay, it's time for bed," and I'm rested in the morning. That's unbelievable. So it's just kind of learning from people that it's important to I'd pay someone to decorate my house just because if someone comes over, I want it to be decorated. I have no need or want. I could live in a box. Unless I was having people over, then it's a nice box.
Yes.
It's got to look good, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the irony too. You want your house to look good because you want everything to look good as a 3, but at the same time, not being self-present, it doesn't have to for me. I can go sit on that rock over there. My husband jokes around. He's like, "Melissa, I'm the one who buys the blankets for the house and I'm the one who buys the candles to make it smell good. And you don't even care about how the furniture is arranged or if it's an IKEA, firm, whatever it might be." And that couldn't be more true. I think one thing that's really interesting in terms of what problems does not having an awareness of self-pres cause, health and well-being wise, I don't work out to prolong longevity of life. I work out to look good. I work out so that I have, whatever figure that I feel needs to be perceived in order to be valued. And again, as I've grown up, that has changed obviously. And I've realized that, but even with like being sick, like there have been so many times where now this is different now that we've gone through COVID, but, oh, you have a cough? Oh, you have a sore throat? You're weak, like, come on, like get back to work. This is absolutely like work through that.
Take the drugs and work through it, right?
Yes. So it's interesting, like how I've had this judgmental perspective of like, oh, like you're weak for thinking that you're caring for your body in that way or being super attentive to that. That again, like COVID has really helped me change and shift that perspective to grow my awareness of what that looks like.
It's always strange, those of us who have social sexual or sexual social as our top and self-pres as repressed. It's just, it's not in the awareness realm. It stays outside of the radar. And so when we think of someone getting sick, it's like, what's being sick exactly? Like, because it doesn't compute until we're sick. And then that's what they were talking about. But it's not something that's present on our mind. And then even if we have a little sore throat, it's like, yeah, that'll go away and we go back to work. Whereas you'll notice other self-pres types will tend to be a bit more like, I think I need rest. I think I need to take some medication and so on. And it seems laborious for those who have that as their repressed instinct.
Absolutely. And I think it's so funny. We all have the same thing about sleep. And that's the thing that I like kind of beat up myself about because I'm in my mid 50s now. And it's like, I still have not learned that this physical body that I live in needs to sleep. It doesn't seem real to me. Like I laugh, I say, I think I was meant to be like an ethereal being, like a fairy. And I just got misfiled into this human body because I just cannot get my head around the fact that it needs to eat every day. It needs to sleep all the time. That's like so boring and
such a waste of time.
Doing it. It's so annoying.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because haven't we learned that the less we pay attention to the self-pres and the needs of our body, the less efficient we become. What I've learned is that like, if I want to be efficient, if I want to be a world changer, like I need to care for myself. That's an important aspect of being a good social leader. Joel, when you asked that question, what work have you been doing? One, it's just increasing awareness of that.
Totally.
Being more attentive to, okay, I have a headache. Okay, one, accept the fact that you have a headache and let yourself have a headache. And two, what do you think might be causing this? Are you stressed? Was there something that happened? Asking myself and becoming aware, training that.
Or the basics. Maybe you need to drink more water.
Exactly.
That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Basic.
I think it's really interesting that we all come at it from a very 3 aspect, which is what do I need to take care of to have it not be inefficient? Like to have it not be in the way of the greater goal. So I sorted out my house and my finances because it gets causing this inefficiency of like, I don't want to run on the petrol on the motorway. I don't want my house to be a mess so I can't find anything because I hate looking for things because that's such a waste of time. Right. And so even sorting out your own physical well-being is in service of that greater social impact.
Absolutely.
That's excellent awareness. And that's where it begins. It begins by recognition that what I'm currently doing, my neglect of this instinct, is actually affecting my dominant instinct and how powerful that can be. That dominant instinct has gifts. It's got wisdom. It's got intelligence to it. But it seems like if I don't take care of this other piece, it lowers it just a little bit. It kind of reduces it. You get foggy mind. You're not clear on things. And so, it's where it begins is by that awareness. And that's okay that it's in service of efficiency. Sometimes 3s can get down on themselves like, oh, it's because I'm trying to be efficient or because of, but that's also the high side. That's also your gift. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a wonderful aspect of the 3.
Yeah, I think it comes out to, I was just going to say in like raising the kids, if my husband is like, make a cozy little spot for him to sit on the couch. It's like, sit on the couch. And then he makes the cozy spot. And it's like, this is really cozy. I do like this cozy spot. Like you don't even know that you would like the cozy spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say it all the time that in many ways, becoming a parent has really saved me from myself in that regard. As a 3, I feel, even though I have this altruistic desire to help the world, like it has really grounded me in the sense of some of those self-pres aspects that I've pushed off for so long. Yeah. So, what does it look like to turn off technology for 30 minutes and sit on the floor and play with my kids and not view it as a waste of time? Or just that mentality of even my self-talk of what am I saying to myself when I am upset or frustrated, and how am I going to model that for my 2 girls or image or, so that has really helped me shift and reflect. And, yes, I'm in my 30s now, and just kind of that perspective of figuring out, like, what do I really want the legacy of Melissa Flora to be known for by my children, others, etc.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Oftentimes that's what it takes. It takes something, it takes a change. We don't change because we think it's a great idea to upset our whole lives and begin transformation. That's almost never the reason why we start change. It's because something has come into our lives that is compelling. Something is pushing us in that direction. And so we have to. It's true for all of us. And so if you're doing any kind of transformational work, and you can look back and go, well, I wish it was more because I actually, altruistically or, from a place of deep desire, wanted to transform my life. No, almost no one does. I mean, it's really a problem that comes into our lives that we can't get past, that then we say, well, maybe I need to take care of this. And oftentimes for those with self-preservation as their last, it tends to be health issues. It tends to be, money issues or something like that comes in. And then it's, okay, I've got to change. I've got to do something here. And the wonderful thing is when you do, you realize how you've been living in a 2-dimensional life, social, sexual. And suddenly it's, there's this 3rd dimension. That's actually not so bad. It's actually pretty okay. It's never going to be the thing you're going to do a lot of, kind of 3 stuff through, but it does serve your social instinct as your dominant one. So.
Well, I definitely have had that breakthrough on the health side, getting in touch with, getting fit again, putting the emphasis on health has been a big thing for me over the last 6 months. And because I've also been on this journey with the Enneagram, I've been using what I learned from that process and trying to apply it in other parts of my life. So for example, I started following this YouTube instructor, and I've been following the workouts and getting really fit. And I'm now the leanest I've ever been, and in really great shape. But one of the things I could see was that, she's like a Marvel superhero in real life. She's incredibly strong. So she's lifting, 10 kilo dumbbells, which is like 22 pounds. And I'm like, I can't lift that much, but I'm not competitive in there. That is one aspect where my competitiveness doesn't come out, because she's an athlete. She's a fitness instructor. She's been doing this continuously for her whole life. And so my mantra is, I lift what I lift. Right? So she's lifting 10 kilos. I'm lifting 10 pounds. Okay, good. That's what I'm lifting. And that lack of competition, it's just like, I'm doing what's right for me. And then I start seeing, well, how come I can be like that in this aspect of my life? Can I also be that way in being an entrepreneur and not constantly be comparing myself to other entrepreneurs? Because they're in the situation they're in, and I'm in the situation I'm in. And so my business is what my business is. Right? I'm where I am with raising money, and not be constantly comparing and benchmarking myself against other people.
So good.
Yeah. And Joel, I think when you were just talking about, you had mentioned something beforehand that made me think about something I was studying earlier about the concept of the pursuit to wholeness. I think one of the things that's so attractive about the Enneagram is this discovery of who I am completely, who I am as a whole, and for a long time, I feel like I've operated in a fragmented view. I've only operated out of a social lens or a social instinct, and being more aware of, okay, let me tap into my self-pres and let me understand like my sexual superpowers, all of that helps me understand like how to take these pieces and become whole. So I think that's been a really powerful part of this journey, is using the fragments of where I wasn't operating beforehand to say, hey, let's put these together and let's make it a superpower on the pursuit to wholeness.
Yes.
Yeah, you nailed that, Melissa. I think just the awareness piece, right? It's the more you know, the more you know.
Absolutely. And bringing in the other parts of it that, Joel reminds me that like the fact that I need to rest is not a weakness. It's just part of who I am. And that actually maybe doing that will make me more efficient or effective at what I'm trying to accomplish. But maybe it's also just valid in itself.
That's the deeper wisdom. It takes a while for us to get to that place of just, I can enjoy it just for its sake. And that's the next. I mean, at first you do have to use some hacks like, well, this makes me more efficient, so I'll do it. And that's the way we get at it. All of us have to do that through our types. But then we start to move more towards wow, I actually enjoy this process just for the sake of the process. And just, I'm experiencing self-preservation, and interesting, it makes me feel really good. Donna, you were saying like, interesting, when I sleep a full night, that feels really good.
Yeah.
And we start to taste of it. And then it becomes, I think I could do this more and more. And you find out that it never sabotaged you at all. That whole thing of rest and taking care of your body was never the thing that was going to slow your 3 down. It was never going to limit your 3 capacity. It's actually the opposite, that when you bring it in, it releases the 3-ness in its fullness. And that's the deeper wisdom that we have to come to. It takes a while to get to it. None of us get there overnight. So
there's so many things that I could respond to that. There's a devotional that I've been doing recently from Sean Palmer, just about 40 days in the journey of an Enneagram 3. He talks about this idea of the word beloved and taking this word apart, be loved. And I feel like for a 3, so much of this pursuit is to be loved, right? But how he remarks about, part of beloved is knowing that you can just be. And you are loved for being. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to compare. You don't have to. So I love that concept of like channeling our understanding of being loved. I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, I'd probably have to get that on there somewhere.
Well, I cannot thank each of you enough for being on this podcast and the depth that you brought, each of you. Just remarkable. Awareness, transparency. I just think it helps so many out there listening to understand the social 3, how it works, how that instinct works along with that 3 need for success, need for being approved, admired. And so again, thank you so very much to each of you for this gift that you've given to us.
Thank you so much for listening and for going on this learning journey with us. Make sure you are subscribed, and if you leave us a review, it really helps the algorithm to help other people find this work. Find the free Instincts test and all of our work at www.theartofgrowth.org. And follow us on Instagram at Art of Growth. But for now, my friends, this has been another incredible week on this podcast, and we are thrilled to be a part of putting this work out into the world. Now, may you be aware of the wider connection that you get to serve and be a part of. Whether it is natural for you or not, may you grow in and expand in your connection with a wider purpose, meaning, significance, so that you may enjoy and engage with the beauty of the wider picture. May you tune more into your own body, heart, and mind, so you choose your relationships well. So you choose the people that you're going to spend time with well. Bless you in that this week. Grace and growth, my friends.